Well, let's turn the light on to another digging in special, in this case, playoff edition episode. Momentarily, we're going to dig in with the great Pete DeBoer, who's nice enough to join us on a game day. On a game day in the playoffs. Well, the lights just went out. Now they're back on. Let's just roll with this. Pete DeBoer getting ready today as we take this for game two, Vegas and the Vancouver Canucks. So we're thrilled that he is going to join us. But before we get to that and our sponsorship, I want to talk to you about something. I want to reinforce something that I've said with regularity on all of our audio podcast platforms on YouTube. I want you to rate where you think we're at as a group here at Digging In. Be honest about it. How can we satisfy you more? How can we get better? As I always talk about, our handle on both Twitter and on Instagram is @DigInTrip, @DigInTrip, and @DigInTrip, that handle on both Twitter and Instagram. That light is always on. And finally, a new feature that I'm excited about on YouTube. I want you to feel free to ask any questions about a particular episode or about anything. And I will promise you that I will answer them on the next episode that is recorded. I'll pick a couple. I'll answer them at some point during the Digging In podcast after I receive those questions. Moving forward, this particular episode, it is a playoff edition special, and that is presented by Zim's Vodka. Zim's Vodka, boy, terrific people. I'm back in Michigan. The great Terry Olson, Western Canadian, who went to Notre Dame in Wilcox, Saskatchewan, where, of course, Rod Brind'Amour went. Some future NHL greats like Wendell Clark, Curtis Joseph, then went to Western Michigan, was successful in business, but then said, you know what, my heart's in vodka. I can understand that. So he goes over to Poland, because it's potato-made vodka, and really was diligent in, I think, creating the smoothest vodka on planet Earth. He has a couple of different levels. His top Mount Everest level is Zim's 59, a club in Columbus, about a 4-hour drive from here. Serves exclusive Zim's 59. And at the Tiki Hut, this fabulous golf course, the great one, Wayne Gretzky, was there recently. And he enjoyed Zim's so much that he signed that Zim's 59 bottle. So if it's good enough for the great one, number 99, I think it's smooth enough and good enough for all of us. Zim's with an I, vodka.com. Rebel Zim's on Twitter, and Zim's Vodka on Instagram. Also, the great people at the Ford Motor Company. This is a very exciting time here at Digging In because I've spoken about my cousin, the great Jim Farley. He will, in short order, be named the president and CEO of the greatest automotive company on planet Earth. And Jim is also going to be digging in with us very soon. Jim is my father's godson, his mom, my godmother. He has an incredible story of intelligence, work ethic, innovation, family first, service and faith. So we're really looking forward in the next little bit for the great Jim Farley, who soon will be, very soon, the president and CEO of the Ford Motor Company, to join us and dig in deeper. So thank you to the people at Ford, Ford.com, to learn more about the new Bronco. My gosh. And all of their other exciting things right now, a company that stepped right up to the plate with regards to taking care of our country with ventilators and other such needs during these unprecedented times. So thank you to Zim's and to the Ford Motor Company. And because of them, we are able to, at this moment, dig in with the great Pete DeBoer, a guy that has had an exemplary National Hockey League career, taking 2 teams to the Stanley Cup Finals in New Jersey and in San Jose, won a Memorial Cup coaching the Kitchener Rangers. Very proud to call him a friend, and really thrilled that he would take a few minutes on a game day as he gets ready for game 2 in the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Without further ado, the great Pete DeBoer.
Lace them up, let's start the show. We're digging in with Trip. 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 We're digging in with Trip today. Yeah.
Well, this is a neat one for me. Aside from the long-standing success that he's had as an NHL head coach, and I admire the heck out of that. He's stellar behind the bench, but he's been a friend for a long time. So, Pete DeBoer, on a game day nonetheless, you join me, and I start every Digging In episode, partner, by asking, how do you define digging in?
Well, that's a great question. For me, it's when do you have to dig in? It's when things aren't going well, when you're facing adversity, and for us as coaches, that comes along fairly regularly. And it's just reminding yourself to stick to your foundation and your beliefs and not waver in that. And the NHL playoffs throw a lot of things at you. I'm coming at you from a bubble in Edmonton where we started with 24 teams, 3 weeks ago. And, it's almost like Hunger Games. You keep waiting for the cannon to go off and see who's next leaving and who's left. But, we're digging in here. Our group's digging in, and we can see the finish line. It's on the horizon. There's a couple hills left to climb, but at least you can see it.
What do you like most about your group, Pete?
I love how this group plays, and my first admiration for the group started on the bench in San Jose when I was coaching there the last 2-3 years. We played them in the playoffs a couple times. They're built the right way. They have great skill, but it's built around an honest game. They have a fourth line with an identity that physically keeps you honest and gives your own players lots of space. Underrated defense, and really now with the tandem we have, maybe the best goaltending in the NHL. So there's a lot to like.
I want to, along those lines, and I'm gonna jump right to this, partner. This question may come from a mutual friend, and he may or may not be a coach in Winnipeg. He said, Pete, when he began coaching in New Jersey, when he began coaching in San Jose, it was never during the middle of a season. Even in the most unique of times, this was for the first time during a season. And if this is Paul Maurice asking the question, how was that different?
Yeah, great question. It was my first experience in 25 plus years of coaching. It was the first time I had ever taken over mid-season. I had been fired mid-season before and gone and sat on my couch, but I had never walked into a dressing room mid-season and had to take over, particularly a team that we had battled with and was probably our number one rival. There was a lot of hated battles over the years. So there was a lot of baggage there around that, not just taking over in the middle, but what room you were walking into. And, I actually talked to Paul because he had experience doing that. When you've coached as long as Paul has, you've coached in every situation, mid-season, end of season, beginning of season. He's a guy I rely on a lot. Gave me some great advice, about how to handle it as usual. And for me, it was just about walking in and getting comfortable. And I knew after that first uncomfortable meeting with the group that they wanted to be coached and they wanted more. They weren't happy about where they were at or the fact that some real good people had been fired because of their play. And they were looking for fixes. And when you get a group like that, they're easy to coach.
I'm going to use, you said you came in because, what a rivalry, the Sharks and the Golden Knights. And you said there was some luggage there. And Pete, I don't know if you've ever heard me say this, but when I feel, whether I'm out on the boat, wherever, and guys aren't pulling their weight, I say to them, your name might as well be first name Lou, last name Gage, or first name Sam, last name Sonite. Lou Gage and Samsonite, because your luggage. So how, with all of that, having been the Golden Knights nemesis, how did you broach that to create the chemistry that you now have?
Well, Paul suggests I go in with a little bit of a levity and, maybe crack a joke about us ending their season the way we did the year before on a 5-minute major that probably wasn't a call and 4 goals in 3 or 4 minutes. So we talked a little bit about that. I had the luxury of having a couple guys in the room that I had coached before. Cody Eakin actually took that penalty I had on a world championship team. So he was an easy target for me because I knew him. But it also, was after that breaking the ice a little, me recognizing that real good people lost their job as much as Gerard Gallant and his staff battled with ours. Gerard's a great man and a great hockey man, and that group cared a lot about him, and you couldn't discount what he had done with that group. Taking an expansion team to the Stanley Cup is unheard of. So, I wanted to acknowledge that and let them know that, while I was here, I understood how they felt about good people like him and his staff losing their job, and that while it wasn't my fault that I was there, the way to answer this was to turn this thing around. And I thought starting with the leadership of Mark Stone and some of those guys, we really took off.
And Gerard's, he's a player's coach. I just say this being an analyst, not your friend. He's a player's coach like you're a player's coach. And I think Paul over the years has become an immense player's coach too. How would you, in Pete DeBoer's definition, define what it means to be a player's coach?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know, I wouldn't have called myself always a player's coach, just like Paul wouldn't have. I think when you come from a junior hockey background where parents drop their kids off with you at 16 years old and you're responsible for them 24 hours a day from 16 to 20, you have to be a disciplinarian. You can't be friends and buddies with them or they'll run wild. You're responsible to be their surrogate parent. So, that disciplinarian piece of how Paul and I think both coach and is from that background. At the same time, as you start working with men, you realize you don't have to do that. And I think the game has changed too. It's a different player than it was 10 or 15 years ago. The players that grew up 20 years ago and 10 years ago in that era, accepted discipline and accepted jump how high mentality and coaching. I think the new player now, wants explanations and wants video and wants dialogue and communication constantly. And so you have to change with that. And I think, the coaches that have changed through that, I look at John Tortorella. I mean, I think he's probably changed as much or more than anybody from where he was 10 years ago, if you asked him, although he kept his foundation and what he believes in. We all have to change in order to coach today's athlete.
Pete, I'm going to take you back to a game. You were coaching the Devils at the time, and it had to be only 20 minutes before warm-ups. And remember, you were coaching. Jaromir Jagr was on the team. He was pretty intense, but it struck me. Now, granted, you and I have been friends for a long time, but there we are, just having a casual conversation. And you're going to go out. You're a veteran coach at this point, but you're going to go out and coach the game. Everybody always said about your goaltender, who you went to one of your 2 finals with, Marty Brodeur. You could talk to him about just about anything right before a warm-up. It's a relaxed approach, but then you have that switch once you get behind the bench. Do you think your players can feel that? Because I think if they can, it's very advantageous.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we're all different. Paul, I would term Paul a guy that dials into his game face, early on game day and keeps it on until the first beer gets cracked after a win. And I've never been like that. I've always been able to kind of plan a normal day and up until, it's time to get busy. I'm a big believer in getting my work done ahead of time, and then really that time before game, you're just trying to fill the time to the puck drops. There's really nothing left to do. So, I think for me, I'm a competitive guy, and doing that doesn't get me too wound up, because if I carry too much anxiety onto the bench, you're always dumping that on the players. So, you try and stay as relaxed as possible, at least in my case, until you can't.
I think, partner, I think it gives you longevity too. Like, I mean, I remember when the Hurricanes won the Cup. Seriously, Mark Recchi was a really competitive guy. But my gosh, he and I could be talking about a variety of non-hockey subjects before warm-up. And then, boom, he gets out there, true competitor. But I think it gives your brain, it gives your emotions a rest. And I don't think it would be beyond. I think you could say that's why he played into his 40s. And I admire when I was out there at the ice level in Raleigh, I thought about that same thing in you. So when you get your work done, you play game 2 against Vancouver in several hours. What's your game day like in the bubble?
Yeah, great question. So we played Vancouver, 2 nights ago. We went back after the game. We don't watch any video right after a game. We went back, had a beer, relaxed, got up the next morning. Our staff got together. We always rewatch the game in the morning as a group. We did that. And then we plan our meetings based around that. It's either positive reinforcement of the things we did, some teaching moments, so some individual clips for guys we've got to get to individually. And then we watched last night as a coaching staff, we watched the Colorado-Dallas game. We got up this morning, based on our review of that game, had our team meeting with our group at morning skate. And then that was it. I had a little workout and pregame meal. You're interrupting my nap here by about 15 minutes, but I'll head for a nap. What else is new, right? And then we'll head over and get to work. But in the bubble here, I mean, you don't have the drive into the rink. You're walking to the hotel. You stop at the Tim Hortons truck, which is parked, right outside the door in the courtyard here on the way to the rink. So it's very convenient, and also, getting very familiar now. We've been here for almost a month.
Pete, well, now that I'm interrupting your nap, I might as well go full throttle. So, all right, so here I am. I'm in, Grosse Pointe, just outside of Detroit. You're playing for the, across the lake, the Windsor Spitfires. You were drafted by the Leafs. You had some big-time numbers as a player with the Spits, and then, with Milwaukee professionally. At what point did you say to yourself, you know what, I think I might want to be a coach?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well,
I'm trying to ask great questions, Pete.
I can remember the first time I met you. We skated in the summer. You were, a college player turning pro, or just had turned pro, and we had some great local players between Detroit and Windsor during those days that would get together for skates, and that was the first time you and I crossed paths. But I was very fortunate to play for a Pete Carmanis owned junior team in Windsor, with great management and Jimmy Rutherford, and coaching and Tom Webster. So, for how fortunate you are, you go through a draft, you never know where you're going to go. To get picked by that organization really shaped my whole life. I spent 4 years there, got drafted by the Leafs. I remember when I turned pro, Jim Rutherford, had basically told me, say, listen, you got a chance to be an NHL player, but he goes, you'll know after 3 years, and don't waste a lot more time than that if you don't see that it's going to happen, because, you can play 10 years in the minors and it disappear pretty quickly. And so that's exactly what I did. I played 3 years. I was a decent minor pro player, but I knew I wasn't going to be a full-time NHL player, and had the opportunity to get into law school in Windsor and continue my education, something I had always thought about, and had taken classes in the summer while I was playing. And, I had never even thought about coaching. I was gonna go to law school and hopefully do something in hockey, players union, player agent, and worked for the NHL. But I moved in with my old junior teammate, Paul Maurice, because he had an extra bedroom at his apartment, and he needed an assistant coach. He got the coaching gig with the Detroit Junior Red Wings late in the summer, didn't have time to interview a lot of assistants, asked me to come over and help out. Jimmy Rutherford offered to pay my tuition, so I didn't even get a salary. I got my tuition paid to help out with Paul until they got somebody better. And that started my coaching journey. I just fell in love with it. And, really between Jimmy and Pete Carmanis, they gave me the avenues going forward there to really pursue this. And, it's amazing how life works.
Well, that's great stuff. And for this question, I'm going to not refer to you as Pete. I'm going to refer to you as counselor, because you had, the degree from, I believe, the University of Windsor and University of Detroit. So counselor, how would you say that legal foundation has benefited you, if at all, as a coach?
Yeah. I use it every day, honestly. Like all of us that grew up as hockey players, it's such a small circle, such a small bubble of people you're involved with, hockey people. And when I went to law school, I was opened up to a whole new world of diversity and people and issues and politics. So it was enlightening for me as a young guy who had never seen anything outside of a dressing room and the hockey environment. As far as how I use my legal degree, basically coaching is being a lawyer. You're creating a case every night individually for a player on why you need him to do certain things in order to have team success, but also for your team. You're selling to them the reasons why you need them to go to uncomfortable places and do uncomfortable things in order to help the group move along. And, you're developing a case on a daily basis that you've got to convince your jury or your team what to do. And my experience at law school was invaluable for that, as well as, Paul Maurice is one of the best speakers I've ever heard. It comes naturally to him. That was something that I had to work on in law school, stand in front of a court and present a case and do that. So, there's been a huge advantage to that background, and I use it all the time.
Pete, I don't know if I ever told you this story. I'll make it quick, but I was waiting for a buddy at a hotel in Beverly Hills, and he's slow as molasses. Okay. So I said, heck with you. I'm going to wait at the bar. All right. And so I get down. So I go down, I'm at the bar. All right. And sitting right next to me is Matthew McConaughey. And he had just finished the film, A Time to Kill. And he was a lawyer. And I remember, because my dad, your friend, my dad, God rest his soul, was a lawyer. And I turned to him, and I had one or two, but I turned to him and I said, Matthew, that closing argument that you delivered in A Time to Kill, it made me want to become a lawyer. And he paused and he goes, did you become a lawyer? And I'm like, no, the feeling only lasted for about 15 minutes, but I'll tell you what, you knocked that closing argument out of the park.
Well, you know what? I should have mentioned with Pete and Jimmy, your father, Emmett, he played a huge role there too. He was always in the background with Pete, but, always a huge influence in a positive direction for me when I was there too.
And he would be so happy, and he is so happy right now, knowing one of your kids, we're going to get to youth hockey in a minute, Matt has committed to Holy Cross, his alma mater. I'll tell you what, he's having a party in the sky thinking about that because he loved you. Speaking of guys that we both loved who are now in the sky, I remember my first year broadcasting that I went on a run in Vancouver, the team you're now playing, and Tom Webster was assisting Mo at the time, and he said, Tripp, why don't you come by the room this afternoon? We're going to look at some film. And, because I was a goalie, I didn't really understand systems. It was so unselfish of him. I ended up getting lost on a run in Stanley Park because I thought it was a circle. It wasn't, so I was late to the meeting. But Webby took me under his wing and taught me systematic things that still, I can't tell you how much they benefited me to this day. How did he influence you the most? God rest his soul, Tom Webster.
Yeah, what a tragic loss for the hockey world when he passed away last summer, just this past summer. You know, you're so fortunate when you look back on your life, and I'm in my early 50s now, but it's all the people that you come across and the influence they have on you. And I mentioned, your dad and Jimmy Rutherford, Pete Carmanis, Tom Webster would be right at the top of that list. I was a young player coming from a small town in Canada at 16 to Windsor. I'd never been to a big city before. And, Tom was way ahead of his time. Tom wasn't the disciplinarian. Tom was the guy that could discipline, but you were a part of his family when you played for him. He had you over for dinner. You knew his kids. You knew his wife, Carol. He was an amazing person. And he's one of the first guys, that you looked at and said, boy, what a cool job and what a cool guy. Wouldn't that be a great way to make a living? Even though, it wasn't on my radar at the time, I think I was open to the idea of coaching because he had done it. And I think Paul would say the same. He was the guy that pushed Paul into coaching when he quit playing. And so Tommy's got a special place in a lot of people's hearts that he touched. And, we could all be so lucky, but to leave a legacy like he's left behind, once we're gone.
Well said. One more, since you speak of another Windsor Spitfire great, whether it be yourself, Paul Maurice, Tom Webster, Bob Bugner, Claude Julien, is there anything you can point to, Pete, that would explain why Windsor, that very fine OHL organization, has produced so many fine head coaches?
Well, I'm going to go even further. Joe Quenneville.
Hello. Let's dig deeper.
DJ Smith now, back to Don Cherry even. So, it's amazing, really. For a small city, I think it's the blue collar mentality of the city. You grow up there, you live in Windsor. It's a working town. There's no shortcuts. It's an honest town. And I think the game is an honest game. I think so. If you're that type of person, it's a lot easier to get into coaching because, those kind of attributes are something that really aren't negotiable when you're coaching, especially young men.
Well, in a minute, I'm going to send you on your way, but this is far too important to pass up because here you are, you excelled. We've talked about Windsor. You won a Memorial Cup in 2003 with the Kitchener Rangers. Boy, what a run that was. And now you have three beautiful kids, but two of your boys, Jack, BU, Matt is so proud he's going to my dad's alma mater, Holy Cross. So you're the perfect guy to ask, Pete. And I'm sure you will give it a historical perspective and a current perspective, the OHL or major junior hockey versus college hockey.
Yeah. Well, it's such a subjective decision. And honestly, having been on both sides of it intimately, I really think it's what you grow up with. I can only tell you my parents let me make that decision based on what I knew, and what I knew is what I grew up with, which was OHL hockey. I was from a small town in Ontario, and you watched the local junior team and you dreamed of playing for them, and then you dreamed of playing for the local NHL team, which was the Toronto Maple Leafs. When that decision came, one of the detriments of being the kids of an NHL coach is you move around, and my kids grew up either in Florida, where we started and coached and played for a mutual friend of ours, Griff Brackett, who we were very fortunate. We moved to Florida, and really at that time, now they have great coaching. A lot of ex-players have stayed in the area, Radek Dvorak and Thomas Vokoun, but back then they didn't have a lot of hockey knowledgeable people coaching AAA, and we were coming from Canada, and very fortunate that we ran into Griff, and And he was a AAA high level coach in an area where you never expected to have that. He had a huge influence, and he actually took my son to about his first Boston University game on a tournament, and he fell in love with it. And then when it came time to decide OHL or college, it was where he grew up and what he was familiar with and what his mentors like Griff Brackett had kind of pushed to him. So it was an individual decision, and I know he's really happy with his decision. He's enjoying every minute of it. And same with my son Matt, who ended up playing most of his minor hockey in New Jersey when I coached there. And same thing. A lot of great coaches, with a lot of influence, and he chose Holy Cross. So I'm sure Emmett would say the same thing to you. You know what, son, this is your life. We'll expose you to everything, but you've got to choose your path.
I'm going to pick this up because I want to make sure I read this verbatim, because this comes from Griff Brackett, who, what a small world. He went to Babson, and he played at Babson with as close of a friend as I have down the road, Nick Papagiorgio. Okay, so this is what Griff said about Jack. He said, "He's my favorite player I've ever coached. He's a gamer. He's a tireless worker. He hated to lose. And he has beyond supremely high character." I'm sure that makes you feel great as a dad, but as a long-standing, successful head coach in the National Hockey League, if you were to give advice to any parent or any kid to try to be coachable, starting at the beginning and at every level, what advice would you give?
Well, first, that's a great compliment from a great hockey guy. Which makes it mean even more. That's the ultimate compliment a parent can get. It's not, boy, your kid was the fastest guy on the ice or the best stick handler. For me, hockey is about the life skills that you learn being part of a team and being part of a leadership of a team, or watching your mentors and your coaches. And then those are the life skills that, for me, that's the greatest part of the game, the life skills your kids learn that they can take into whatever they choose to do. Because let's be honest, 0.1% ever make a living playing the game. But those are the important things. So, that's the ultimate compliment a parent for me can receive. And how do you do that? How do you get kids, that get those type of scouting reports? I think you have to promote those things. You have to promote those things over the goals and the assists and being on the first line or winning every night. You got to promote the important things, and that's working hard, being a good teammate, being respectful, those type of things.
Very well said. Two more things. A great New Jersey Devil team. You took to the finals against the LA Kings, San Jose Sharks. What a series it was against the Pittsburgh Penguins. If you were to extract, whether it be individually or cumulatively, the experiences from going to the end of the dance that hopefully will benefit this Vegas hockey club, what would they be?
Wow. Two totally different journeys. I was a young coach in New Jersey coming out of Florida where I had not made the NHL playoffs in my 3 years down there. Everyone said, well, he can't get a team in the playoffs. And we went to the Stanley Cup final my first year in New Jersey under great leadership from Lou Lamoriello, a great core of Zach Parise and Kovalchuk and Brodeur. But we just had huge buy-in from a deep group of veteran guys that I asked to really change their game. They had played, a large part of their careers like the 80s New Jersey Devils, trapping and sitting back. And we asked them to play on their toes and get more aggressive. And I was very fortunate in that group, the buy-in and the leadership from those veterans. And we lost to an LA team that went on to win two cups and really nobody could beat. And San Jose, I think, was a totally different journey. They were exercising some demons from the past, losing to LA and some other things. And that was a ride that, you know, until we hit the Pittsburgh Penguins, who again were multiple Stanley Cup champions, you know, I thought we were the best team in hockey. So I'm hoping this year we can do this. You know, hopefully we don't have someone on our journey ahead of us here that is going to go on to win multiple cups, that is just that good that no matter what we do, no matter how we empty the tanks, it's not going to be good enough. I think we have that opportunity. I love our group, but every journey is different. You never know.
You know, this question comes from Pete, my American Hockey League coach, who's a huge admirer of yours, Kevin McCarthy. And Kevin McCarthy, who once when I was playing for him in the American League said, Tripp, you're the kind of guy that I'd want my daughter to marry. He might rescind that. Anyway.
That's a compliment from him.
Oh, yeah. He wouldn't just say it with his 3 beautiful daughters.
Yeah.
But he said, you know, I'd genuinely be curious because Pete's taken a team to the finals in the East, and he's taken a team geographically way in the West. And now you're in a bubble. Will there be an advantage potentially, especially when you think about that run with San Jose with all of the miles that you have, say, with the Sharks, that you wouldn't have with the team that comes out of the East? I mean, that's a factor, isn't it? And how would you quantify that?
Yeah, it's a factor for sure. I think it's going to be the hardest cup to win because of the level playing field of the bubble. You know, you don't have home ice advantages. It's pure even hockey, and everybody's in the same boat. Everyone came in healthy. Everyone came in with the same length of training camp. I mean, you couldn't ask for a more even playing field to decide who's going to be the best team in the world. So, you know, for that reason, I think it's going to be the toughest cup to win. You know, and Mac's right. You know, I think when you eliminate the travel and the home ice advantages of different buildings, you're going to get a true champion, and we're excited to see and pursue that.
Well, I'm officially a Golden Knights fan. I can assure you of that. Counselor, I rest my case. I have nothing more to say other than to, I guess, ask you in closing. This is my closing argument of finality. On off days, you've said, you know what, boy, the bubble, I mean, how thankful you are. You have all sorts of hockey and you have all sorts of beer. So I'm sure the entire global hockey world would like to know if there was one beer. I mean, I'm thinking about the old days, Strange Brew, Elsnor's Brewery. If there was one beer, Pete, that you had to choose numero uno, top of Everest, what would it be?
No question, Sleeman's. It's a local brewery in Guelph. You can only get it in Canada. I'll ship you a case when we win.
Done. I'm going to hold you to that.
All
Pete,
right.
I love you. Good luck tonight, and good luck one step at a time marching forward. You are one of the guys at the top of the list that make having a life in hockey a life that gives me more gratitude than I could express. Good luck, my great friend.
Thanks, Tripp. Always a pleasure. See you, buddy.
Well, thanks very much, Pete. That was exceptional, and we'll look forward to digging into that case of beer. Hopefully, after you and the Golden Knights win the cup. As I said at the top of the show, I want to once again remind you to rate us, tell us where we're at on all of our audio podcast platforms on YouTube. Be honest, because knowing what you think is the only way that we can grow and get better. Again, our handle on both Twitter and Instagram at DigInTrip. Until the next time, I want to thank our presenting sponsor, Zim's Vodka. Zim's Vodka, the smoothest vodka on planet Earth, Polish made. The founder and owner, Terry Olson, a trek through his hockey life and then business life that has led him to be very, very diligent about his passion, to patiently and diligently create the smoothest vodka on planet Earth. I want you to try out Zim's Vodka, and you can learn more about the smoothest vodka on the globe at Zim's with an I, vodka.com. And the Ford Motor Company. Very soon we will be digging in with my cousin. I'm a very proud cousin. The great Jim Farley will be joining us in probably the next few weeks to talk about his incredible path to an esteemed position. My gosh, I couldn't be more proud. And thank you to Ford for their support of our playoff edition of Digging In. Of course, you can learn more about, I think, the finest automotive brand on the planet, Ford.com. Until the next time, thanks so much for digging in with me. Thank you to Pete DeBoer for digging in with us, and we will talk to you and see you soon.
We're digging in with Trip today, yeah. Today, yeah. Today, yeah. Today.